Alrighty, so a little late night edition of MLS News of the Week, or as you would say, a little MLS News of the Week after the dark edition, as I decided to do this News of the Week right after when the final US Open game finished tonight, and that one turns out to be the game that I focused the most, which is the San Jose Earthquakes versus the Seattle Sounders, and that game, it looked like it was never going to end. Like, that PK shootout was an incredibly long one, and in one that I was kind of shocked. The fact that the Quakes were able to pull it out. I mean, with just so many of those PK that was converted by the Sounders, I was thinking, yeah, eventually the shoe is going to drop by the Quakes. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Quakes did a good job in terms of converting most of the PK shot. In fact, both teams only missed one PK shot, as that one went 11 rounds, and the difference was that Stefan Cleveland, of course, missed the PK, and Matt Brizano was able to put it away. But yeah, I definitely did not expect the Quakes were going to walk out of that PK shot as a winner, because, knowing the Quakes PK shot luck, and also knowing my teams in terms of seeing them in a PK shot, it has not been great lately. And the fact that they were able to pull it out of that, it's kind of a little bit surprised, but also I'm kind of happy because, anytime when you win a PK shot, it's definitely a relief. But anytime when you win a long PK shot, it's definitely worth something to celebrate. And especially, I'm pretty sure every MLS fan base are doing that because, I guess maybe this is just karma for the Sounders to become really insufferable now, because they, of course, have been crowned as the CONCACAF Champions League champion. They're just banging their chest by saying that every single time. But in terms of the other games that is going on, believe it or not, we're actually not done in terms of the round of 32 of the US Open Cup. There's actually going to be one more game that is going to be resuming tomorrow, and that game is going to be Minnesota United versus the Colorado Rapids, as that game basically was stopped after 17 minutes because of a lightning delay, and it never resumed. And rightfully so, because when you actually watch that game, and especially check out some of the posts that the Loons basically post on their Twitter page, yeah, Allianz Field was basically becoming a lake, which makes sense because, I mean, I know Minnesota is a land known as the land of 10,000 lakes, but I didn't think, and in some way didn't want Allianz Field to be part of that too, because that pitch was absolutely flooded because of just a crazy storm that was going on in the Twin City area. Which, by the way, if you're watching this from the Twin City area, I hope you're doing okay, and hope that you, of course, have power, because I did hear that, some of the powers did went out around the Twin City area, and that, they not only had that crazy lightning storm, but they were also under tornado warning, and the sirens were going off both in Minneapolis and also in the St. Paul area. So yeah, it was pretty scary to see that, but it was also pretty evidence the fact that when I saw the picture of that pitch completely drenched in rain, and as I said, becoming almost like another lake in Minnesota, I knew that game was not going to be resumed. And now, heading into tomorrow, I'm going to be very interested to see how the pitch quality is going to be, because this season, as I mentioned before, the pitch at Allianz Field has been absolutely terrible, and they have tried their best to fix it over and over again, and they kind of did a good job, at least in the last two home games. But now, with the way that pitch is now completely ruined again because of that downpour rain that we saw tonight, I wonder how it's going to hold up tomorrow. I mean, I know the grounds crew is going to try to do their best, but I'm not expecting that pitch is going to be at its best, and we could definitely have a very sloppy game. And consider that game is still only at 1-1 after 17 minutes. It's going to be interesting to see how it is going to be. It's all to play for in terms of how that game would turn out. But like I said, that's really the last round of 32 game that it is going to happen before they will do a draw, I believe, on Friday. But other game to note, unfortunately, we didn't really see a cup upset in the round of 32. I mean, as I said before, as much as I know some people don't like the fact that there's these MLS teams facing against or there's not enough like these MLS versus kind of USL Championship or USL League One kind of match, I kind of like it with the way that means a guarantee that once we get to the round of 16, you're going to have some lower league division team, and we're going to definitely do so. We have a bunch of USL Championships signed moving on to the next round. We even have a USL League One team that is moving on, but we knew that beforehand because there was a all USL League One kind of match between Union Omaha and Northern Colorado Hailstorm that was going on, which Union Omaha was able to win that one. So yeah, that basically guaranteed that we're gonna at least have one team in the third division, but a bunch of team in the second division in the USL Championship is going to be part of the next round. But again, I can understand why some people were kind of disappointed, and that pretty much MLS went 5-0 in terms of the round of 32 in this round. And that I think this also is kind of an example of the fact that there is, as much as I know sometimes in the US Open Cup they're trying to kind of reminisce the famous cup upset or the giant slaying that we've seen in the FA Cup. It's not as often as we've seen in the FA Cup, but we see it, and when we do see it, it's definitely a good joy to happen. But we definitely did not see it in this round, and let's just hope maybe that's going to be different as we head into the round of 16. But are there things to know? Well, if you're a team that had a 2-0 lead on the road, it was not a great day for you in this round of 32, because both FC Dallas and Atlanta United had a 2-0 lead heading on to the road, and both of those teams lost in extra time. Sporting KC, of course, came back to win 4-2 against FC Dallas, though Dallas went down to 10 men for the remaining of extra time, which makes it a little bit tough. And then Nashville, of course, able to come back and win 3-2 against Atlanta. And Nashville ways of coming back is also very similar to Sporting KC way, because both of these teams actually score a late equalizer in stoppage time to force extra time. But the only difference is Nashville had to do with 11v11, while Sporting KC, as I mentioned, they were up a man for the remaining of that extra time. And then, as I mentioned, there was a crazy long PK shootout between the Sounders and the Quakes, and I thought the Quakes were going to join the latest victim of blowing a 2-0 lead on the road and basically lost that against the Seattle Sounders. But like I said, to my biggest surprise, they won a PK shootout, and now it's going to be interesting who they're going to get in the next round. I think most likely it's going to be God, I actually don't know who they're gonna get. I guess we'll find out once we get to the round of 16 draw. But now moving away from talk about the U.S. Open Cup to talk about some of the news that has happened this week. Well, there isn't really a lot of news to talk about, but certainly one news that is bad news for Atlanta United fans, and certainly for U.S. men's national team fans also, is that Miles Robinson is done for the season. He is done for the season because of a rupture Achilles tendon. So, as I mentioned, I didn't want to mention the A word, but it seems like I think any time when I bring up the A word, which if you don't know what the A word is, it stands for Achilles tendon rupture or torn ACL, and it seems like this is once again going to be the case. And unfortunately, this also kind of once again opened the Pandora box, known as the debate of whether or not if MLS should indeed ban turf field, because of how it seems like we've seen a lot of these ACL injury that has happened on turf. And again, I think there's still this long debate, and that I think if they do indeed ban turf, which I don't think that's probably going to happen, because I'm pretty sure teams that are still playing on turf, which we still have I think 6 teams right now playing on turf, they're going to do it every way to basically not have that ban to be input, because they really have nothing to do to switch into a grass turf. I mean, you look at all of these stadium that currently is playing in turf. All these stadium are pretty much playing in a multi-purpose stadium or a sheer NFL kind of team. So it's kind of like it's not possible for them to basically switch from grass to turf. Like the only stadium that I can think that is most likely going to switch from grass to turf is Providence Park, and I'm pretty sure Timbers fan have been wanted that to happen for a very very long time, and I already heard about the story of that underground creek that they had. I mean, there's got to be a way they of course work that out. Though again, that probably is not in the top priority in terms of the ongoing power struggle between the Timber fan base and also the front office. But yeah, if there is a stadium that I can think of that is still currently playing on turf that maybe could revert into a grass pitch, and maybe be if MLS does decided to kind of create a ban in terms of non-multi or soccer specific stadium that has to be having a grass turf, then I think the Timbers will most likely decide to follow that through, because again, it is still a long ongoing debate, and there's a lot of stats in terms of it. In fact, I even read like an article talk about the whole study of them seeing Achilles injuries on turf compared to it on grass, and it seems like when it's on turf, it seems like it's more extreme than what we've seen in grass, which again brings another good valid evidence of why MLS should ban turf pitch, and that turf is definitely one of the main culprit of why we've seen so many players blow out their knees because of it. But now moving on in terms of the next news and talk about some contract extension. Well, we did have one contract extension as RSL have signed Andrew Brody to a contract extension all the way to 2025. Unsurprisingly, because Andrew Brody has been a very good defender for RSL. I remember when he came into the scene just a couple of years ago, and that he's definitely been a very serviceable player for RSL, and unsurprisingly they lock him to a long-term contract extension. Another contract extension that we had, well, actually it's not a contract extension, but more like a purchase option, as the Houston Dynamo has exercised the purchase option of Coco Carrasquilla, and this shouldn't be a big surprise too, because he's also been a big part of this Houston Dynamo team. I mean, he's already a big part of the Panamanian national team, but now it seems like he's playing even a bigger part for the Dynamo, and there's no surprise that they decided to exercise the purchase option and buy him outright, and basically own him outright now with this purchase option. Now, the Houston Dynamo also signed forward Beto Avila from Houston Dynamo Dolls, and the reason why I kind of want to mention this signing is I believe this is actually the first ever time we've seen an MLS team decide to promote a player from an MLS Next their MLS Next Pro affiliate, and in this case, Beto Avila playing for Houston Dynamo Dolls, and now it seems like he has been promoted to the main Houston Dynamo team, and I think he definitely deserves it, because he's definitely been lighting up the MLS Next Pro. In fact, he there was one game he actually scored a hat trick for the Houston Dynamo Dolls, and Houston Dynamo Dolls, a team that they're started to become an early contender in terms of winning MLS Next Pro. I mean, they're sitting first in the Western Conference right now, and that I don't think a lot of people expected that of course is the case. I mean, I know the Dynamo definitely had some good academy players in their team, but it's always been overshadowed by the FC Dallas Academy. Like, if you look at some of the best academy in the league, I always assume that the FC Dallas Academy is always going to be at its best, and their affiliates, North Texas SC, really dominate the USL League One, and I expect they were going to do it in the MLS Next Pro, but instead that's not been the case. I mean, North Texas SC is still within reach of that. I mean, they're actually third in the Western Conference right now, but I definitely did not expect that the another Texas team in MLS Next Pro is actually now in first place, and that of course is the Houston Dynamo Dolls, and that I think again maybe a lot of that has to do to the fact that their main forward Beto Avila has been really lighting up, and this is the good thing about about MLS Next Pro, because if you impress with the second team, you can always have a chance in terms of getting promoted in the main team. And although I know Beto Avila, he's going to have more to fight to try to get a regular spot, because right now the regular spot for the Dynamo in that number 9 position is Sebastian Ferreira, but he could be a good option in terms of coming off the bench, and I'm excited to see how he's going to do, because again, I think this is the first ever signing I've seen an MLS team decide to sign a player from their affiliates, and I want to see some historic moment where the first ever player turns out to do well for the main team too. Now, moving on in terms of the next news and talk about some transfer rumors. So there wasn't as much transfer rumors and signings as we saw last week, but one rumor I talked about last week is Giorgio Chiellini planning to leave Juventus and coming to MLS. Well, it turns out LAFC is going to be the team that is going to be first now rumored to try to sign him, and it's interesting because LAFC they definitely have a decent team, and that when you look at their defense this season. It's been much better this year, and that's it. That's it. They are still missing a couple of their key defensive pieces, and I guess maybe adding Chiellini could be used as a depth piece because again, I know Chiellini is definitely a big name, and I would thinking that some teams like maybe the Galaxy, Inter Miami, or even New York Red Bulls, or even DC United might even think about offering him a contract because these are the team that is always known to sign aging European superstar player, and that I didn't think LAFC was going to be one of those teams to do so, and if that's going to be the case, again, I don't know if Chiellini is going to be a regular starter because when you look at that back line, it's already look pretty stacked, and that I just don't think he's going to break into that first team, and that if you're Chiellini, I mean, I don't know if he really cares where he's going to go. I guess maybe this location is good too because going to LA is definitely a market that I've seen a lot of these aging European superstar player that wants to come to MLS and experience the life of MLS and continue to prove those Euros right in terms of MLS being a retirement league. That of course is the case, but we'll see whether or not if this deal does go through. Now, moving on, in terms of the last two news, we got Ronaldo Cisneros winning Player of the Week. Again, I pretty much named it because when he scored that hat trick against who was Atlanta playing? Oh, the Fire. They were playing the Chicago Fire this week. I knew that Ronaldo Cisneros is going to win the Player of the Week because anytime when you score a hat trick, the only time you don't win Player of the Week when you score a hat trick is if someone else score a hat trick, and in the case of last week, there was nobody that scored a hat trick besides Ronaldo Cisneros. So by rule, it seems like the Player of the Week awards is now basically guaranteed for players that score a hat trick. You're gonna win the award, and congratulations to Ronaldo Cisneros, of course, scoring his first ever hat trick and now earning his first ever MLS Player of the Week award. And then finally, the last news that is kind of a big news that I want to talk about is EA. So EA and FIFA decided that they're going to end the 2-decade video game partnership that they have, and that basically means that next year, well, actually, I don't know if it's next year or the year after, but the next game that EA basically released is not going to be called FIFA 23, although, again, that depends on, I think FIFA 23 is going to be the last game that it's going to be called that, but after that, I think it's going to be called something like EA Sports FC, which I think that is probably the most MLS kind of name as possible to name a video game. I mean, just kind of a little reference in terms of how a lot of MLS teams decide to go with these generic kind of name. But yeah, I think EA probably saw what MLS decided to do, and that we're gonna try to do the same thing too. Now, obviously, that probably pissed off a lot of people because I know a lot of MLS fans, and especially when you support one of these teams, which I unfortunately do with Minnesota United, yeah, you get frustrated with the way that the team is named. Basically, sounds very generic and sounds like kind of a European generic name, and that you just hope that EA doesn't do the same thing. But it seems like that, of course, is going to be the case. And also for those that worry that EA doesn't make any more soccer game, which I guess maybe that shouldn't be a worry, but more like a blessing in disguise with the way that a lot of people, including myself, that have bought FIFA year after year, and how I always get frustrated with the game when I play it. That's not going to happen. EA is going to still make these games. I mean, it's not going to call FIFA anymore, but they're still going to make games that it's going to be basically the same as FIFA, and that the only difference is that when it comes to the World Cup or any FIFA events, they're going to have to go with a generic name. So something like, I think, Global Cup as they mentioned it before. I mean, this is also kind of similar to when EA didn't have the Champions League, right, where they call it like something like the European Champions Cup or something like that, and that now it seems like they're going to do it with the World Cup, which again, I don't think anybody would mind, because not a lot of people when they play career mode really care about playing on the or coaching an international team. I mean, you can have that option of basically coach in the club and international level in career mode, but I myself always decline any of those options that ask me, do you want to also coach an international team along with a club level? And I always say no, because it's kind of realistic too, because you never seen a situation when you're a head coach that decided to coach both in the club level and in the international level, and rightfully so, because that would just makes that would just not work out whatsoever because of the scheduling, and that would just be too much. So yeah, again, I don't think this really doesn't affect a lot of things other than the fact that EA basically cannot no longer call their game called FIFA, and that all the future game is basically going to just be the same. But either way, that is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all these news? Again, there isn't really a lot of news because, as we're in the middle of the MLS season, there tends to be less signings and less transfer rumor, and especially after when the primary transfer window just closed, that there's not going to be a lot of news regards in terms of some of the trades that goes around within the league. But that being said, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.